Alrighty, sports fans, welcome to our Part 2 video here today for College Football Week 9. Of course, this is still the 2022 season. My name is Brock Page. I've been doing sports picks for free right here on YouTube since 2016. I also sell my personal sports bets on patreon.com/BrockPage. And I currently have over 620 members who are signed up and active on that site right now. And I'll include a link for my college football tier package bets in the description section below. And with that, guys, let's go ahead and dive into some free content. We're going to take a look at Florida taking on Georgia, 3:30 p.m. East. Georgia is minus 21, totals 57. Now, the Bulldogs should be able to run all over the Gators here this Saturday. They're in the top 3 in the country in total yards per contest. Meanwhile, defensively, the Bulldogs are allowing only 9 points a game. Jamon Dumas Johnson's leading the D in tackles. Now, they're taking on a Florida offense on the other side of things, who's been little threat throwing the football. They're actually 93rd in the country in passing. Meanwhile, on the defensive side of things, they're allowing nearly 200 yards a game on the ground. So certainly some areas of concern on both sides of the football. Now, total-wise, 2 out of Florida's last 3 did stay under the total. Meanwhile, Georgia saw unders in all but one game this year. I'm going to lean toward Georgia minus 21, under 57 in that tight window. Next game, Oregon-Cal, 3:30 p.m. East. The Oregon Ducks are minus 18 on the road, totals 58. Now, the Ducks are scoring over 42 points a game, and they rank in the top 5 in total yards. Bucky Irving and Noah Whittington, they've combined for nearly 1,000 yards between the two of them. They're facing a Cal defense who has all kinds of problems slowing down the pass themselves. They're actually in the bottom 20 in the nation in pass defense. Meanwhile, as a team, the Golden Bears suffered losses in 4 out of their last 5. Now, when it comes to the number, Cal did see overs against the likes of Arizona and UC Davis. Meanwhile, Oregon went 5-1 to the over in their last 6. I'm going to lean toward Oregon minus 18, over 58. Next ball game I have for you, it is going to be, sorry, I'm talking to myself, thinking out loud here. A little Big 12 action. I'm talking about Oklahoma State squaring off against Kansas State, 3:30 p.m. East. Now, K-State's minus 2, totals 56.5. And even though they do a nice job of running it, K-State's throwing for only 169 yards a game. When it comes to covering the point spread, they failed to cover in their last 2 straight. Now, they're facing a one-loss Oklahoma State team who's certainly built for a track meet themselves. The Cowboys are scoring 45 points a game, and they rank in the top 15 in passing. Bryson Green and Brennan Presley, they have over 800 yards receiving between both of them. When it comes to cashing in against the point spread, Oklahoma State covered in 5 out of their last 6. Now, total-wise, the Cowboys saw overs in all but one game this year. Meanwhile, K-State went 3-1 to the over in their last 4. I'm going to lean toward Oklahoma State plus 2, over 56.5. Next ball game here, a little ACC action. I'm talking about Wake Forest at Louisville, 3:30 Eastern start time. Wake Forest is minus 4 on the road, total 62. Now, I do think the Deeks should be able to handle these guys in a shootout situation if that happens. They lost only one game this year, and it was to Clemson, where they actually put up 45 total points on the Tigers. When it comes to the scoring in this one, the Deeks are averaging over 41 points a game. A.T. Perry and Jamal Banks, they have a dozen touchdown catches between the two of them. Now, they're facing a Louisville team on the other side who failed to cover against conference opponents like Boston College, Florida State, and Syracuse. The Cards are also 85th in total passing. Now, when it comes to the number, Louisville did see 2 out of their last 3 get over the posted total. Meanwhile, Wake Forest, they saw overs against the likes of Clemson, Liberty, and Vanderbilt. I'm going to lean toward Wake Forest minus 4, over 62. Next ball game I have for you, it is going to be Illinois at Nebraska, 3:30 Eastern kickoff. Illinois is the 7-point favorite on the road, totals 50 and a hook. Now, I'll tell you what, Illinois statistically has one of the best defenses in college football. They're allowing only 8 points a game, and they lead the country in fewest yards allowed. Jerzon Newton has 47 tackles and 4 sacks. They're taking on a Nebraska squad who plays little to no defense themselves. They're actually in the bottom 10 in the country in total yards allowed. And when it comes to the scoring, 4 out of the Huskers' last 6 stayed under the total. Meanwhile, Illinois went 5-1 to the under in their last 6. I'm going to lean toward Illinois -7, under 50.5. Next contest, it is going to be Cincinnati taking on UCF, 3:30 Eastern start time. UCF's the 1-point favorite, totals 55. Now, the Knights actually just got manhandled by East Carolina this past Saturday. They gave up a season-high 34 points to the Pirates in that loss. They're facing a Cincy offense who's in the top 25 in scoring. Now, defensively, on the other side of the football, these guys do a real nice job of slowing down the pass. Cincinnati's giving up only 185 yards a game through the air. Ivan Pace, he has 7 sacks on the season. He's actually 3rd in the country in that category. He's also leading the team in tackles. Now, when it comes to the total on this one, the Bearcats saw their last 3 straight stay under the line. Meanwhile, Central Florida went 5-1 to the under in their last 6. I'm going to lean towards Cincinnati +1, under 55. Next matchup I have for you, it is going to be Northwestern at Iowa, and that'll be a 3:30 Eastern kickoff. The Iowa Hawkeyes are -11, totals 37 points. Not on our big screen behind us, but no big deal. We'll continue to move on here. And I'll tell you what, even though the Hawkeyes are incredibly tough on defense, their offense is dead last in the country in total yards per game. They're facing a Northwestern team who covered in 2 out of their last 3. They also have stud linebacker Bryce Gallagher. Should have a big game in this one. He's got a team best 70 tackles. Now, number-wise, Northwestern went 4-2 to the under in their last 6. Meanwhile, Iowa saw 5 out of their last 7 stay under the total themselves. I'm going to lean toward Northwestern +11, under 37. Next matchup, it is going to be New Mexico State at UMass, 3:30 p.m. East. Another one of those toilet bowl games between independents. Now, New Mexico State is -3 on the road, totals 38 points. And for a team being favored on the road in this spot here, well, the Aggies have had a tough time moving the football this year. New Mexico State's currently in the bottom 5 in the country in total yards per contest. They've also been pretty bad stopping the run on defense. They're facing a UMass team who covered in 3 out of their last 5. And they do a real nice job of pass defense. They're relying only 202 yards a game through the air. Now, scoring-wise, the Minutemen went 4-1 to the under in their last 5. Meanwhile, 5 out of New Mexico State's last 7 stayed under the total. I'm going to lean toward UMass +3, under 38 in a snooze fest. Next game, Temple Navy. Wow, that's another good one. 3:30 Eastern start time. Navy's the 13-point favorite, totals 41. And no real surprise here, guys. Navy's rushing for nearly 250 yards a game on the ground. They're actually in the top 5 in college football in rush yards per game. Meanwhile, defensively, on the other side of the football, they have a top 15 rush defense. Jacob Busick has 5 sacks on the season, along with 24 tackles. They're taking on a Temple team who scores just 14 points a game. And they rank in the bottom 5 in running the football themselves. Meanwhile, defensively, these guys allow over 180 yards a game on the ground. When it comes to the total, Temple saw overs against the likes of UCF and Lafayette. Meanwhile, Navy saw their last 3 straight get over the line. They might put this one over themselves. They do have that ability with that high-powered triple option attack. So I'm going to go ahead and lean toward Navy -13, over 41. Next contest, SMU squaring off against Tulsa, 3:30 Eastern start time. SMU's -3, total 65. And for a team favored on the road here, SMU's played, pretty bad defense. They actually rank 108th in total yards allowed per contest. That's 108th out of 131 teams. Now, they're also facing a Tulsa squad who loves to sling it. They have a top 20 passing offense, and they're led by wide receiver Keelan Stokes, who averages 115 yards a game. When it comes to defensive play in this one, the Golden Hurricane, they do have a fighting chance at slowing down the SMU passing attack. They're allowing only 164 yards a game through the air. Now, number-wise, Tulsa did go 4-3 to the over in their last 7. Meanwhile, SMU saw overs recently against the likes of Navy and TCU. I'm going to lean toward Tulsa +3 over 65. Next ball game, it is going to be Robert Morris at Appalachian State. Wow, that should be a good one. Talking about, what is that, a 3:30 Eastern start time. Now, this game's currently off the board. Probably not going to see a number until game day. But regardless of what this number opens up at, Appy State has an incredibly potent offense. Chase Bryce, he's thrown for 18 touchdown passes, which actually puts him in the top 15 in the nation in that category. Now, they're taking on a winless Robert Morris team who simply can't move the football. They're playing FCS opponents for the majority of the season, and these guys are averaging only 8 points a game in their last 6 outings. This could be ugly. I think the Robert Morris players are like in danger physically. Give me Appalachian State getting the job done against the spread. I know you got to take those big games for scholarship money, but man, you're kind of prostituting your players out in that one. That's going to be a rough one. Anyway, next game, North Texas, Western Kentucky, 3:30 Eastern start time. WKU's -9, total 69. Now, the Hilltoppers should be able to throw all over these guys. They're scoring 38 points a game, and their quarterback, Austin Reed, is 5th in the nation in passing. Now, they're facing a North Texas team who has one of the worst passing defenses in the country. Not only are these guys allowing 35 points a game, they're also in the bottom 10 in pass yards allowed. Now, total-wise, the Mean Green went 5-1 to the over in their last 6. Meanwhile, Western Kentucky saw overs against the likes of Troy, Florida International, and Indiana. I'm going to lean toward Western Kentucky -9 over 69. Next contest, Missouri taking on South Carolina, 4 o'clock East. South Carolina's -3.5, totals 47. And to be fair, I actually think it's MIZZOU who's going to have the best defense on the field in this one. They're actually in the top 25 in the country in total yards allowed. And Tyron Hopper's leading the defense in tackles. They're facing a South Carolina team who really haven't, been prolific in moving the sticks. They're actually 83rd in the nation in total yards per game. Meanwhile, the Gamecocks' defense, they've had a tough time slowing down the run. Now, scoring-wise, South Carolina saw unders against the likes of Kentucky, Georgia, and Georgia State. Meanwhile, Mizzou's 6-0 to the under since September 1st. I'm going to lean toward Missouri +3.5, under 47. Next matchup, it is going to be South Alabama taking on Arkansas State, 4 o'clock Eastern start time. South Alabama's -12.5, totals 56. And despite a tough loss to Troy this past week, South Alabama is a pretty good football team. They're in the top 25 in passing, and they have an incredibly physical defense. And aside from allowing just 19 points a game, the Jaguars are also limiting their opponents to just 99 yards a game on the ground. Yam Banks has 24 tackles on the year, and he also has a team-best 4 interceptions. They're facing a struggling Arkansas State team who lost 6 out of their last 7 themselves, and they have a tough time moving the chains. They're in the bottom 30 in the nation in total yards per contest. When it comes to the total, Arkansas State saw unders against the likes of Southern Miss, Old Dominion, and Ohio State. Meanwhile, 3 out of South Alabama's last 4 stayed under the total themselves. I'm going to lean towards South Alabama -12.5, under 56. Next ball game, a little 7 o'clock action here. I'm talking about Kentucky at Tennessee, and that'll be a 7 p.m. Eastern start time. Tennessee's the 12-point favorite at home, total 63.5. Now, the Vols have been unstoppable with the ball in their hands. They're leading the country in scoring and total yards. Hendon Hooker has 21 total touchdowns, and he's thrown only one pick. Meanwhile, Jalen Hyatt's averaging over 100 yards a game receiving, and he also has a dozen touchdowns. They're facing a Kentucky squad who's definitely not built for a track meet. As a matter of fact, these guys are 106th in rushing. Now, total-wise, the Wildcats saw all of their games stay under the total except for one. Meanwhile, Tennessee saw unders against the likes of LSU and Pitt. I'm going to lean toward Tennessee minus 12, under 63.5. Next ball game, it is going to be USC taking on Arizona, 7 o'clock Eastern start time. USC is the 16-point favorite on the road, total 76. And even though the Trojans have been unstoppable on offense this year, they're actually throwing for less yards a game than Arizona. Matter of fact, the Wildcats are in the top 5 in the nation in passing. Jake Dellar has thrown for 19 touchdowns, and he's got a receiver who's getting over 100 yards a game in Jacob Cowing. Now, when it comes to covering, Arizona covered against the likes of Washington, Colorado, and San Diego State. They're facing a USC squad who gave up 43 points in a loss to Utah in their last game. The Trojans also have the 76th ranked pass defense in the country. Now, total-wise, 4 out of the Trojans' last 7 got over the number. Meanwhile, Arizona went 4-1 to the over in their last 5. I'm going to lean toward the Arizona Wildcats plus 16, keeping this one close, over 76. Next ball game, another one should be a barn burner. Not. Colorado State at Boise State, 7 o'clock East. The Boise State Broncos are minus 28, totals 42. But as good as this Boise defense is, they are having all kinds of problems on offense. As a matter of fact, these guys are 120th in the nation in passing yards per game. Very ineffective throwing the football. They're facing a Colorado State team who actually won 2 out of their last 3, and they covered the number twice during that span. As a matter of fact, the Rams have held their opponents to 20 points or less in 5 out of their last 6 ball games. Jack Howell leads the program in tackles with 67. When it comes to the total, Colorado State saw all their contests this season stay under the total. Meanwhile, Boise went 3-2 to the under in their last 5. I'm going to lean toward Colorado State plus 28, keeping this one close, under 42. Next game, Coastal, Marshall, 7 o'clock East. Marshall's minus 2, totals 56. Now, the Marshall Thundering Herd, I'll tell you what, they're an incredibly physical football team. They're gaining over 200 yards a game on the ground offensively. Meanwhile, defensively, they're allowing only 16 points a game, and they rank in the top 10 in fewest yards allowed. Micah Abraham's got 4 picks on the year and 19 tackles. And speaking of tackles, Abe Beauplan's leading the team in that category. Now, they're facing a Coastal team who's been horrible against the point spread. They failed to cover in 5 out of their last 6. And they're really not playing that great a defense this year. The Chants are allowing just about 30 points a game. And they currently rank 101st in total yards allowed. Now, when it comes to number 2 out of Coastal Carolina's last 3 stayed under the number. Meanwhile, Marshall saw all but 1 game this year stay under the total themselves. I'm going to go ahead and lean toward the Marshall Thundering Herd minus 2, under 56. Next ball game I have for you, it is going to be UAB at Florida International, 7 o'clock Eastern kickoff. UAB's minus 5, totals 48.5. Now, UAB's got a very tough defense. I think this is a pretty advantageous number here. They're actually allowing only 17 points a game, and they're in the top 10 in the country in slowing down the pass. Noah Wilder's leading the program in tackles with 68 of them. When it comes to offensive production, the Blazers are rushing for nearly 250 yards a game on the ground. Now, they're facing an FAU team who's amongst the worst in the country in stopping the run. Meanwhile, as a team, the Owls lost 4 out of their last 5 ball games. Now, total-wise, FAU's 6-2 to the under in their last 8. Meanwhile, UAB saw 5 out of their last 7 stay under the total themselves. I'm going to go ahead and lean toward UAB -5, under 48.5. Next matchup I have for you, it is going to be Michigan State at Michigan, 7:30 Eastern start time. Michigan's -21, totals 53.5. Now, the undefeated Wolverines are scoring 43 points a game, and they rank in the top 10 in rushing. Blake Corum's rushing for over 6 yards a carry, and he averages nearly $130 per contest. Meanwhile, defensively, Michigan's in the top 3 in fewest points allowed. They're taking on a Michigan State program who's having a tough time moving the sticks themselves. Sparty's actually 103rd right now in total yards allowed. Meanwhile, in defense, not so good there either. They're allowing nearly 425 total yards per game. Now, scoring-wise, Sparty saw their last 2 straight get over the number. Meanwhile, Michigan saw overs against the likes of Penn State and UConn. I'm going to lean toward Michigan -21, over 53.5. Next matchup, little SEC action. I'm talking about Ole Miss at Texas A&M, 7:30 Eastern kickoff. Now, Ole Miss is -3 on the road, totals 56. And I'll tell you this much, the Ole Miss Rebels, they've just pounded the football all season long. They're scoring over 38 points a game. They're also in the top 3 in running the football. Quinshon Judkins is running for over 100 yards a game, and he scored a dozen times on the ground. Now, they're taking on a Texas A&M defense who's been pretty bad at stopping the run themselves. They're 101st in the country in rush defense. Meanwhile, offensively, when they have the ball in their hands, well, they're in the bottom 25 in total yards per game. Now, when it comes to the number, I don't think the Aggies can score enough to help put this one over. They're also 5-2 to the under in their last 7. Meanwhile, Ole Miss saw unders against the likes of Kentucky, Tulsa, and Georgia Tech. I'm going to lean toward Ole Miss -3, under 56. Next ball game I have for you, it is going to be Arizona State taking on Colorado, 7:30 Eastern start time. Now, ASU's -13.5, totals 46. And as bad as Buffalo is, it's Arizona State who lost 5 out of their last 6. And they're having a tough time moving the chains. They're currently ranked 100th in Division I in total yards per contest. They're taking on a Buffalo team who does a decent job of defending the pass. I know they've been pretty bad this year, but not a bad pass defense, to be honest with you. And Josh Chandler-Semedo, he has 57 tackles and 3 sacks. Now, total-wise, the Buffs are 5-1 to the over in their last 6. Meanwhile, Arizona State saw 2 out of their last 3 get over the line. I'm going to lean toward Colorado +13.5, keeping this one close, over 46. Next ballgame, Baylor, Texas Tech, 7:30 p.m. East. The Texas Tech Red Raiders are -3, total 64. Now, the Red Raiders are one of the best passing teams in the country. Not only are they scoring over 36 points a game, they're also throwing for 364 yards per contest. They're taking on a Baylor team who's 80th in the nation in pass defense. Baylor also failed to cover in 2 out of their last 3. They gave up 34 points a game on average during that span. Now, total-wise, Baylor saw their last 4 straight get over the number. Meanwhile, Texas Tech's 5-2 to the over in their last 7. I'm going to lean toward Texas Tech -3, over 64. Next ball game, it is going to be Pitt at UNC, 8 o'clock Eastern start time. The North Carolina Tar Heels are -3.5, total 65. And as much as the... Wasn't expecting that. And as much as the Tar Heels are built for a slugfest, I really think their defense is going to have their hands full with Pitt. The Tar Heels are actually in the bottom 10 in the entire nation in yards allowed per contest. When it comes to giving up points, these guys are allowing over 32 points a game. Now, they're facing a Pitt team who does a nice job of running the football. They're gaining nearly 200 yards a game on the ground. Meanwhile, defensively, they're ranked 26th in the nation in total yards allowed. Servosha Dennis has 47 tackles and 5 sacks. When it comes to the total, Pitt saw unders against teams like Louisville and Tennessee. Meanwhile, UNC on the other side, they saw 3 out of their last 5 stay under the line themselves. I'm going to lean toward Pittsburgh plus 3.5, under 65. Next ball game, Middle Tennessee State taking on UTEP, 9 o'clock East. UTEP's the 1.5-point favorite, totals 52. Now the UTEP Miners got the W in 3 out of their last 4, and they failed to cover only once during that stretch. They've also been very tough on the defensive side of the ball. They're limiting their opponents to just 195 yards a game passing. Now they're facing a Middle Tennessee team who's on a 3-game skid themselves, and they actually allowed over 40 points a game on average during that short span. As a matter of fact, the Blue Raiders are currently in the bottom 10 in the nation in pass yards allowed. Now when it comes to the number, Middle Tennessee went 4-1 to the over in their last 5. Meanwhile, UTEP saw overs against the likes of Louisiana Tech and Charlotte. I'm going to lean toward UTEP minus 1.5, over 52. Next ball game I have for you, it is going to be Stanford taking on UCLA, 10:30 Eastern start time. UCLA is minus 16, total 64. And even after suffering a loss to Oregon last week, I still think that UCLA is stellar on offense. They're scoring 40 points a game, and they're in the top 10 in total yards. Dorian Thompson-Robinson, he's completing 74% of his passes. He's actually accounted for 21 total touchdowns. Meanwhile, running back Zach Charbonnet, he's gaining over 7 yards a carry. Now they're facing a Stanford team on the other side who actually has one of the worst rush defenses in the country. These guys are currently 112th in slowing down the run. They also failed to cover in 5 out of their last 7. Now, when it comes to the total, Stanford's 4-2 to the over in their last 6. Meanwhile, UCLA went 5-1 to the over in their last 6 themselves. I'm going to lean toward UCLA minus 16, over 64. Next ball game I have for you, it is going to be San Diego State taking on Fresno State, 10:30 Eastern start time. Fresno State's minus 8.5, totals 40. Now, the Bulldogs have a top 20 pass defense. David Perales is 10th in the country with 6.5 sacks. Meanwhile, Lavelle Bailey's the team leader in tackles. They're facing an Aztec team who's no threat passing the football themselves. As a matter of fact, San Diego State's throwing for only 115 yards a game. Now, no real surprise here, guys. The Aztecs are averaging just 19 points a game on offense. When it comes to the total in this one, 3 out of Fresno's last 5 stayed under. Meanwhile, San Diego State's 5-1 to the under in their last 6. I'm going to lean toward Fresno, minus 8.5, under 40. Next matchup, it is going to be Nevada at San Jose State, 10:30 p.m. East. The San Jose State Spartans are minus 24, totals 44 and a hook. Now, the Spartans have played some really tough defense this year. They're allowing only 14 points a game, and they're in the top 10 in pass defense. Kyle Harmon's leading the D with 52 tackles on the year. Now he's facing a terrible Nevada offense who's 126th in yards allowed per game. They're also on a 6-game skid, and they're scoring only 19 points per contest. Now when it comes to the scoring, Nevada saw unders in 4 out of their last 5. No real surprise there. Meanwhile, the Spartans are 5-1 of the under in their last 6. I'm going to lean towards San Jose State, minus 24, under 44.5. And with that, guys, we're going to jump into our next and final breakdown for the video. It is going to be Wyoming at Hawaii, 11:59 Eastern start time. Now, Wyoming's minus 10, totals 48. Now, this should be a manageable number for Wyoming. They went 4-1 against the spread in their last 5. They're also led defensively by Devin Harris, who's 3rd in the nation with 7 sacks. Now, they're facing a Hawaii team who has just 2 wins on the season, and, well, they have a whole lot of offensive problems. They're scoring only 18 points a game. They're in the bottom 15 in total yards per contest. Now, total-wise, the Rainbow Warriors saw unders in 6 out of their last 7. Meanwhile, Wyoming saw unders against the likes of Utah State, Air Force, and Northern Colorado. I'm going to lean toward Wyoming minus 10, under 48 in that tight window. And with that, guys, now it's time for our quick pick recap. I like Georgia minus 21 under 57. Oregon minus 18 over 58. Oklahoma State plus 2 over 56.5. Wake Forest minus 4 over 62. Illinois minus 7 under 50.5. Cincinnati plus 1 under 55. Northwestern plus 11 under 37. UMass plus 3 under 38. Navy minus 13 over 41. Tulsa plus 3 over 65. Give me Appalachian State getting the job done against the spread. Western Kentucky minus 9 over 69. MIZZOU plus 3.5 under 47. South Alabama minus 12.5 under 56. Tennessee minus 12 under 63.5. Arizona plus 16 over 76. Colorado State plus 28 under 42. Marshall minus 2 under 56. UAB minus 5 under 48.5. Michigan minus 21 over 53.5. Ole Miss minus 3 under 56. Colorado plus 13.5 over 46. Texas Tech minus 3 over 64. Pitt Panthers plus 3.5 under 65. UTEP minus 1.5 over 52. UCLA minus 16 over 64. Fresno State minus 8.5 under 40. San Jose State minus 24 under 44 and a hook. And with my next and final free pick for the video, I'm going to lean toward Wyoming minus 10 under 48.